Hi, everyone. Welcome to the QA Source webinar. The feature is API testing. We appreciate your being here and giving us the opportunity to share some of what we know about API testing with you. My name is Lynn Christensen Esker. I'm the marketing manager at QA Source. It's great to see the turnout today. We're actually representing this webinar topic due to popular demand. We had a capacity audience when we first presented it in March. The popularity of this topic definitely speaks to how important APIs are to all of us in the software industry, and that we probably all understand that API testing is, or should be, a core component of your test strategy, and that API testing will only continue to become more important. Our goal today is to give you industry insights into just how crucial API testing really is. We'll also be sharing some demos on how to test APIs, and we'll get into the code a little bit. Now, we're going to be covering a lot of information this hour, and we'll be making a lot of recommendations. So please don't hesitate to ask questions in the webinar control panel. We'll tabulate your questions and answer them in a Q&A session at the end. You can also use the panel to download your free handout for attending this session, which is a guide to help you track and measure your API testing coverage. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Rajiv, and to tell you a little bit about him and QA Source. We're lucky to have Rajiv Rai, CEO of QA Source, presenting this on API testing. Rajiv has more than 20 years experience in QA, and he's widely recognized as an expert in building, managing, and retaining high-performing engineering teams. Prior to founding QA Source, Rajiv led QA initiatives at Apple, Informix, and Macromedia, which was subsequently acquired by Adobe. Rajiv built and sold Qualitest, an early pioneer in QA technology and processes, before he founded QA Source more than 15 years ago. Since then, Rajiv has grown QA Source from a small team of 3 engineers to an international organization of more than 700 professionals, servicing clients ranging from VC-funded startups to Fortune 100 companies. In fact, QA Source customers have had successful exits exceeding $15 billion in M&A transactions, which has led to our slogan, quality that creates value. QA Source has grown 20 to 50% annually under Rajiv's leadership, and we are now considered one of the world's leading software QA providers and the market leader in test automation services. So QA Source offers comprehensive QA services that can assist you in practically every area of your software development and testing. But for today, specifically for this presentation on API testing, I want to highlight the breadth and depth of QA Source's API automation expertise. We have been testing APIs and extending our clients' API testing teams for more than a decade. We've worked with clients in several different domains and built out a number of API automation frameworks. For example, we've built several API automation frameworks using REST Assured, REST Sharp, Ready API, Visual Studio, and these frameworks have been based on a variety of different types. We've used different tools such as Swagger, Postman, UFT, SOAP UI, Testing Wiz, JMeter, Airborne, and many others. And of course, we've used a variety of different languages such as Java, C#, Python, Ruby, PHP, Perl, whichever is best suited for our clients and their requirements. And we've used a host of other technologies to ensure your API automation gets used in continuous integration, Jenkins, Maven, Gradle, TestNG, Git, and others. Over the years, and because of our deep experience in API testing, we have learned the best ways to build maintainable, robust, and portable API automation suites. So it's with great pleasure and without further ado that I hand the reins over to Rajiv. Enjoy the presentation. Rajiv?
Wow, well, thank you, Lynn. You're very kind. Thank you, everyone, for being on this webinar. We truly, truly appreciate you giving us the audience. This, like Lynn mentioned, this was a very, very popular webinar, and we appreciate you sending us feedback. It helps us be better. So before we get into this presentation, I would like to make a kind request. Please do send us your questions. They do help us. They help our community. Our goal really is to share with our community whatever we know, whatever we're learning. We want to share it with you guys. We want to learn from you. So if I may make a kind request, after this webinar is completed, please do send us feedback. Even if you don't have a question, let us know what do you like about the webinar, what did you not like about the webinar, what can we be doing better. I'm very thankful to my team, Lynn, Rick, and my technical team, my writers, our designers. All of these guys do spend a lot of time putting these webinars together. These are not canned webinars. These are something that these guys worked on these webinars for months and months, and we put these together to share with our community. So if I make a kind request, please do send us feedback. What do you like? What do you not like? What is working? And what would you like to know more of? What can we do to improve? So all this effort we're putting in, if it can be used for benefit of others, that'd be great. So once again, we would appreciate your feedback. So having said that, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share our learnings. And like Lynn mentioned, we are going to be talking about API testing again. We had a great turnout a couple of weeks ago. Some of our members of our community from East Coast or from other geographies could not attend it, so that's why we're doing this again. And they really did want to see that. So before we get into API testing, like I mentioned last week also, let's talk about some trends, specifically in testing as it relates to API testing. We will share with you how we are thinking about it, how our clients are thinking about this, and how our colleagues in the industry are thinking about this. As we know, software development is accelerating, and all of this is becoming possible because of use of APIs. APIs are growing faster than ever. APIs are everywhere. They're on your smartphone, they're at your home, your security system, your favorite business application, such as like CRM or Salesforce or Trello, Slack, HubSpot. There are public APIs to integrate with the large data providers such as Google for Maps or your location. Facebook, not so kindly in the news these days, but Facebook, Twitter for social media, or Stripe and Braintree for credit card processing, Amazon for e-commerce. The point I'm trying to make is, these APIs are everywhere, and we are utilizing them without sometimes even knowing about them. So because of increased use of APIs, our testing world is changing, and for many of us, has already changed. We're doing daily releases or even multiple releases each day that either have no UI or non-standard UI. There are very few tools and techniques that exist to test these kind of applications or the software that we're building. Okay, we're inventing these tools and techniques as we speak to support faster releases of products, ensure products will function, they'll be fault tolerant, they'll be secure, they will not break under load, and perform well. So, I'm sure you guys are saying, hey, enough, we get it, so APIs are important. So what are we going to do about it? So let's go into our agenda for today. I just wanted to establish that, So our agenda today is going to be, few years ago, the buzzword was mobile first. And what we are hearing in the industry now is API first. And what I'm going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the API universe, how it is an integral part of our software development. So that will do that. How APIs are going to affect future of QA. Then, of course, what are the benefits of API testing? And some of you really expresses that you want to know how to perform API testing from some of the questions. And we'll be giving you a demo, demo how you can do API testing. And last but not least, what are some of the best practices of API testing? That's a lot of stuff we're going to cover in the 40 minutes that I've been allocated to do. So I'll do my best. So let's get started. So API universe. So let's take a look at our API universe. Why it is important for QA to understand this. API universe. APIs have really become the raw material for building today's application, and they could be private APIs or they could be public APIs. As a matter of fact, there's a tremendous amount of API work being done building private APIs and public APIs. These private APIs are enabling enterprises to unlock the wealth of data that has been locked away for decades. And now APIs are allowing them to harness this data and enabling the business to monetize it in a variety of ways. You may even have heard of API mashup. That just means combining one or more APIs to create a single service, single graphical interface, producing results that were probably not the original intent when the data was gathered. Okay. So, if you see in this graphic here, there are full-blown API products, there are platforms, there are services. I'm going to talk briefly about products. There's services like a product like Tulio, it's a communication APIs. Without you guys even realizing that you may be using it every day. It allows the developers to, programmatically make and receive phone calls and receive text messages. Twilio is, communication API is used by Uber, OpenTable, Salesforce, really enhance their functionality. So that's on the API product. There's next most and there's a variety of products. Okay. Then there are API platforms. What are platforms? They really kind of help business use APIs to securely share data, services across a variety of devices and channels, right? You can, Apigee is a prime example of this. There's, cloud systems, API platform, the cloud elements, you can use those. Finally, the most common form of a consumer or published API is as a service, where I'm sure many of you are using it again. If the Salesforce uses it, Google Map APIs, is used by commercially. Some of the tools in our world, in the QA world, Jenkins, Jira, they're all using APIs. You're using SonarQube, Webhook, open source APIs are available as a service. So the point is that APIs are new business logic for organizations. They are very, very, very important to our testing profession. And you don't have to take my word for it. I am going to share with you trends that our colleagues and clients are searching on the web. Okay, so let's take a look at the trends right now. So this is an interesting graph where I've shown this graph multiple times. I'd like to share this one to make my point. And this is only public APIs. There are 20,000 public APIs today on programmable web. If you're not familiar with programmable web, I highly recommend that you guys go there and check out a bunch of information available there. And it shows the growth of APIs from just 2000 in 2010, 8 years ago, and it's 20,000 today. Okay, every day there are new APIs being added to enable more functionality. And mind you, these are just public APIs. Okay, and there's, if not hundreds of thousands or millions, if not millions, there's hundreds of thousands of public private APIs that are being built. Okay, so that's really the universe looks like from API growth. I'm going to show you another chart here. What's happening in the testing world. What's this? This is sort of shows you a trend, a search of interest over time. Trends really are in your favor if you're doing API testing or if you're thinking of API testing. This is the latest search trend graph that we pulled from Google. It shows you that there is a surge of search interest in API testing. This API testing really has grown since 2010, when many forces such as smartphone, IoT, big data, all of these things started to take hold. Obviously, a lot of this started around 2007 when iPhone came out, but this has been going on. So again, we're going to give you a lot of information. I'm being asked to do this in 40 minutes, but I want you all to know the importance, how it's impacting our profession. It is really important, and all of us here understand that we'll need to test APIs in one shape or another. Obviously, that's why you're here, because you're interested. So let's go through this quickly. Let's try. Please do send us questions. And I'm being told to hurry up a little bit because I'm falling behind on my times here. So So future of QA, that's sort of the topic of webinar. Future of QA is bright. As far as we're concerned, it's very, very bright. I know you may have heard the talks, you may be reading articles, QA is dead, developers are doing it. Of course they're doing it because there's more to do now. QA professional is not going away anytime soon. I've been doing this for 25 years. I built this company 15 years ago, and we're constantly investing, and we're looking to grow our company, to really triple our size over the next 5 to 6 years. So that's really where we're at. Software development is changing, and it is changing very rapidly. You can see there's AI, there's IoT, there's big data. These are sort of the talks right now, water cooler talks that are happening, right? Of course, we can't really forget the cloud and microservices, which were talk of the town just a few years ago. In the following slides, I'll be sharing with you a little more detail on each of these. This particular slide is a very telling slide. If you notice in the middle of it is API. QA really needs to be focused on API testing to meet business needs, deliver quality products. So I'm not saying our current way of testing is not important. GUI testing is still important. GUI automation is important. Mobile, manual, security, performance, they're all required. API testing is just an expansion of our work. Okay. So what we are going to do is give you a wider exposure to biggest technology trends of today and how they are impacting future of QA. A lot of the impact is a result of wider use of APIs. So let's talk about each of these trends in the next few slides. I'm going to demonstrate to you the significance of APIs in each of these and how they're impacting it. First and foremost, the first thing I'm going to talk about is microservices. Microservices, the concept is not new, as you can see on this graphic here. Salesforce, AWS, eBay, Google have been running microservices for over a decade. In fact, every time you search for a term on Google, it calls out roughly 70 microservices before it returns your results. This is not, I'm not saying this. You can read up in Wall Street Journal. There's an article written by Matt Miller. And so what does the architecture look like? Here's how a typical architecture looks like for microservices. You have your API gateway, you have a front end, whether it's a mobile, web, whatever you may have, third-party applications, there's a service and the database backend. So that's kind of like how, in a very layman's person, that's what microservices look like. Again, the point I'm trying to make here is APIs are required to test any of this stuff. That's API architecture for microservices. Now let's look at the cloud. Again, in the cloud, you look at this here. There is, Dropbox, Box, Gmail, iCloud. All of these. Excuse me. All of these interactions are happening either through a browser, through APIs on the network of computers. Again, cloud is here to stay also, and cloud testing has a bright future as well. So, a lot of our customers are doing stuff in the cloud. So. And some of the tools that you guys may be using every day, whether it's, again, Jira for issue tracking, Agile, project management, all of these applications require APIs. So here's another example for, here's a REST API front end, cloud computing is the back end, and look at this, how, again, I'm oversimplifying this, but the point I'm trying to make here is whether it's microservices, whether cloud, let's talk about IoT. If you look at this IoT-based devices, there's estimated that IoT, now there are over 20 billion devices that are deployed. And that figure is expected to reach to 50 billion by 2020. And most of these will not have a standard UI and will be communicating through APIs only. We'll need to be worrying about not only functionality, but also security and performance, even though they're using APIs. Security and performance is still important, functionality, of course, right? And similar to microservices in cloud, like I mentioned, APIs are the center of IoT. Here, if you look at this here in this graphic, APIs are the inner connectors. They're providing the interface between the devices, business logic, data stores. APIs expose the data that enables multiple devices and combined and connected. Then we can expose the data to the outer world. So, I use this example. It's kind of a fun example where IoT. I won't go into a lot of details, but here is what I like to say is Alexa probably woke some of you up, and your Nest thermostat had set the temperature based on your habits, and you heard your music on Sonos using Pandora. Your protein shake was running low and automatically ordered by Amazon Dash, and your scheduler turned on your home security using Arlo devices from Netgear or something. And then you store all of the data on the cloud, and you drove in your electric car to work. Now imagine, this is like everyday example that's happening today, and a lot is changing in the future, but all of this communication to your smart device is really happening through your APIs, and all of these require testing. So I am very excited about this movement, and our field is expanding. QA professionals, like I said, are needed more and more with varied skills. Again, with varied skills, we need to be upgrading our skills. So that's on microservices, cloud, and now we look at IoT. Now let's look at big data, right? This is a huge testing area in itself, where we not only need to know what to collect, how to store, what to share, when to share, with whom to share. I'm sure you guys, some of you may have watched our, latest happenings in the Congress or Senate, and very, very important. And it's all happening through APIs. So a lot of this requires testing. Many of the major industries are rewriting software. Whether it's healthcare, fintech, social media platforms. All of the data we're collecting or consuming from a variety of sources needs testing. We need to ensure the data that we're collecting is accurate. We need APIs to consume that data to ensure it'll be consumed in a variety of ways, variety of devices, and can be used to come up with creative solutions, right? So here's another chart. Again, we're oversimplifying this stuff, but the point we're trying to show you is there's an API publisher, manager, there's a gateway, there could be a data marketplace, and there's a collection of data that could be bought, sold, consumed, created, all of that require testing. So that's on big data. So microservices, cloud, IoT, big data, and now let's talk about AI. Artificial intelligence, seems to be the current business hot topic in all departments. Of course, you can throw machine learning in there too. They're interchangeably, although related, but they're not the same thing. But I digress. We're not here to talk about debate AI or machine learning. Our two digital assistants that are very popular, Siri and Alexa, are really prime examples, of, or at least my humble opinion, of AI applications available publicly. There are a lot of private AI applications being built around APIs, and now what's going to be happening? You'll be testing a lot of algorithms to ensuring they are working as intended. I do want to point out how our testing world is changing from traditional automation. In traditional automation, where we have expected results, actual results, and there's a lot of specificity when doing automation. Whereas when doing testing AI, ML algorithms, you got a range of possibilities. When testing these algorithms, you're really testing how it learns, how it uses what it has learned to make decisions. Again, a lot of QA work our way. Requires a lot of API testing. So here's another example. As you can see here, there's the AI platform, there's the intent. Again, this is sort of we're oversimplifying here, Siri, Alexa, in that if you're on the Android fan or Amazon fan. So API is a center there as well. So we've talked a lot about scope of API, and I'm hoping it's obvious that we need to do API testing. Not only API testing is necessary, there are a lot of benefits over the traditional methods of testing. So let me talk a little bit about, why shall we do API testing? Why it is the future of QA. Okay, so let's look at some of these benefits. Hopefully by showing the point of this universe was the architecture that I showed you. Could you go back one slide, please? Yeah. Just here is, whether it's the microservices, cloud, IoT, big data, AI, all of them are sort of, tied together with APIs in part of our API universe, and we require this testing. So let's look at some of the benefits of API testing. Okay, so little controversial, but I would love to get feedback here, and that's how we get better. Again, this is my opinion. Well, not even my opinion, it is my team's opinion. They are the ones who really helped put this together. I just deliver. So what are the benefits of API testing? First, lower bug count and reduce cost. API tests can be run very early on the dev cycle. You don't have thereby, you have early bug find fixes, reduce costs, even though UI is not available, components are not fully built, you are able to, test the stuff without having even the full components built or having any UI available. Okay. So stability of APIs would ensure that, your robustness of your business layer, minimum logical issues, later on during the release cycle. So first, lower bug count and reduce cost. And a lot of these are going to say, hey, they are sort of related. Yes, they are all related, but I do want to point those out. Faster time to market. API testing is, again, far less time consuming because you're bypassing the UI. You are doing simple HTTP request and response. Again, no flaky tests, and you're reducing the testing time. And automated API testing, can be part of your CI delivery pipeline and can be used by the entire engineering team to qualify and promote builds on various environments on click of a button. Yes, you can do automated GUI as well. Again, I'm not saying automated GUI is not important. I just don't want you to walk away with that. But API testing definitely allows you to do your, again, lower bug count because you can test components early on, even before they're fully built, faster time to market. Then the next one is improved test coverage. API does enable you to test scenarios where you simply couldn't test them from the front end. The APIs allow you to test a lot of those components in the back end, whether it's the database or the server, wherever you need to do that. So it'll help you improve your test coverage. Next is, again, you can integrate API tests to your GUI automation. You can enhance your GUI automation. APIs can help you generate your prerequisites for your test cases, which will significantly take less time than if you were trying to create those through GUI. Integration of this API testing with GUI testing, so is required to verify your business logic or database verification, or if you're integrating with third-party applications. So integrating of the API to enhance UI automation, enhance security. Again, authentication, authorization, encryption, vulnerability tests are really key areas which cannot be simply tested through GUI, or they are more time consuming. So it makes more sense, in our opinion, to get them tested through API layer to improve speed and coverage and security. Okay, improved performance. Testing a product early through APIs and enhancing your GUI automation. APIs will improve entire engineering team's performance and save development time. Okay, so what did we talk about? So again, the APIs will help you really lower bug count, reduce costs, faster time to market, improve test coverage, integrate with APIs to enhance your current GUI automation, enhance security, improve performance. All right. So this is what's happening in the API universe. How our API, QA and QE world is being impacted by API. In my opinion, it's all great news. There's a lot more work to be done and a lot more learnings to be had. Some of you may already be doing API testing. And some of you may be thinking, how do you do API testing? So in the following slide, we're going to give you a very quick overview of how you can test APIs, the tools and techniques you can use. Okay, I know we're going through this pretty quickly. This will be available. We're recording this. This will be available, so you can actually refer back to this webinar. Okay, so let's do this. So how to perform API testing? How do you do API testing? There are a variety of tools available for you to use to perform API testing, both manually and through automation. We'll be giving a quick demo of both. However, I highly encourage you to use automation as much as possible. In the first demo, we're going to use a tool called Swagger Hub. It's from SmartBear. That used to be open source called Swagger. We at QSource do not endorse one tool over the other. We suggest you use what is best for your use case. Swagger is a set of really open source tools built around the Open API specification. It can help you design, build, document, test, consume REST APIs. Okay. Now, next slide, we're going to show you how you can import API into Swagger Hub and directly execute from there itself. Okay. First, we'll show you how to do manual tests for an API or for functional testing. So here, as a QA professional, I did not want to take any chance and wanting to make sure our demos will work for you. So what you're going to see is we have recorded the scenario, and I'll be playing it for you. These are short 30-second demos. This is so that we would not have to deal with any issues, whether it's with the internet or API server being down, because we are calling in these demos, we are using some of the public services, and we wanted to make sure that this is going to work for you. Okay, we'll have a detailed video posted that you'll be able to download and go through this demo. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to the next slide. Hold on, please. So in this first demo, we're going to show you how easy it is to get started with API testing. We'll show you steps to import an API into Swagger Hub and test a GET request of, it's a Zomato, it's kind of like a Yelp Zomato API that we're using. We'll show you how to manually test the GET request and validating the success of the request by verifying the response parameters and of course your response code. And so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and we're logging into Swagger, import an API, provide a path or URL. Here we're importing Zomato API. APIs are imported. Now scroll down to see where your core to 200. There we are. And now we're looking for a restaurant in the response body. Now we can run through these API tests and verify API endpoints. And really, this is a basic. I'm hoping that our speed is accurate here. So this is a basic API test you can perform manually in a few minutes. Okay, import an API, change a parameter, verify the response. Very, very basic way to manual verification. Of course, to do anything meaningful with API testing, you will need to automate the test. And next, we're going to show you a tool that you can use to automate API tests. Okay, but I did want to show you if you needed to do something really quickly, you could do this manually as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and so in this example, we're going to go ahead and use Postman. First, we showed you Swagger. Now we're going to show you Postman. Why Postman? Postman, another open source tool that helps engineering teams build, test, document, monitor, and publish their APIs. Okay. What are we going to do? We're going to set up Postman. We've just used Postman because of ease of use and features it provides. What are some of the features you get? You can store the information about multiple environments. We'll be demoing that. Parameterize the test data. You want to be able to integrate with your CI/CD tools like Jenkins, and to share the code with the code repositories. I mean, that's really why we're using Postman. It's just a good tool. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here, this is very simple. What we're going to do here is, go ahead, please, is we're going to go to postman.com. You can download Postman based on your operating system. You could add this to Chrome extension. However, that is being deprecated, so you will be using this as a standalone application. It used to be part of Chrome when we were doing this, so it's not going to be a standalone application. So Postman started out as a side project in 2012, and now it has a tremendous reach. Here you see that on their homepage. It says there are 5 million developers. There's a free version, pro and enterprise version. You can use those. Okay. So you've downloaded the Postman. Postman is installed, fairly painless, no big deal there. So next we're going to do is we are going to, before you can really test an API, you got to import it. What we're using here is a Google Maps. It's an open API for our technical walkthrough. We're going to import that Google API into Postman. So let's go to the next slide, please. So again, just like Swagger, we downloaded Postman. Before we can perform any tests with Postman, we need to import an API collection. Go ahead and play, please. All we're doing here is clicking import, find our import from our link, and we give it a link, and we're going to go ahead and import a collection through a link, and that's really it. So here's an API that's imported. Great. And let's go to next step, please. So what Postman does is it allows you to parameterize your test data. Okay, and parameter test data, you can do your environment details, request headers. Obviously, parameterized environment helps to run the test scripts on multiple environments if you want to do on QA, stage, prod, without really doing any changes in the test scripts. Again, when we are building automation at QA source, API, GUI, whatever automation we're building, we're trying to make it automation so it is really portable, maintainable. Those scripts are not brittle in any shape and form. So this is, here the only thing engineer needs to do then is, once you have set up this, update the environment variable, and test can run seamlessly without making any changes to test scripts. So let's do that. Let's do the next slide. Again, parameterizing, as you got to know, it's going to make your data independent. Here we're doing the parameterization. What we're going to do, we're going to show you, we're going to remove the hard-coded values from test scripts. Then we're going to set up an environment variable. We can add new environment details. We'll be creating environment for staging, providing an API key, which will be required to run your API request. Then we're going to set up a variable for URL to replace hard-coded values. Parameterize, provide data to test data files, and we'll be retrieving the values for query parameter for test data files. Let's go ahead and do that. So go ahead and play, please. So here you're going to just click the little icon, managing environment for adding new environment. Now we're going to go ahead and add an environment variable here. So this is the key. Your variable, and you got your value there, and you go ahead and add to that. You're going to go ahead and parameter your URL to remove hard-coded values. It's going to go ahead and do that. Here we are, added a variable name. So we're going to go ahead and get this data through a data file, and that's it. We're done. All right. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and write some API tests that are going to be based on your HTTP request. So, so far what we've done is we've shown you Swagger, we set up a Postman, we imported an API collection, and we've shown you basically creating a parameterizer and variable and create an environment. Now we're going to go ahead and write some API tests. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to write some, we're writing some positive and negative tests. As those positive tests, we can verify happy path and making sure API is meeting functional requirements. Negative tests where we're going to verify if API is behaving, incorrectly with invalid data and not returning response for wrong test data. And then we're writing positive and negative tests where we're passing valid data from test data files, positive test cases, and to really negative test cases. So responses are being compared as predefined expected results. Let's go ahead and do that. So here we are, we're doing a positive test here. You will see, we're gonna go ahead and take the restaurant name. This script was created through the Postman snippets, and you'll do that. We're gonna go ahead and validate data for positive test. And then we're gonna go ahead and add the data for negative test. And going to do that, and then go ahead, and that's it. Perfect. Now let's go ahead, and what we're going to do in the next step is basically our tests are set up. Now we're going to go ahead and run those tests. Let's go to the next slide. So we're running these test suites through Postman collection runner. It's part of Postman. Again, we are selecting Google API. We're going to go ahead and select the Google API as collections and staging as test environment, and we'll show you that we set up earlier. Let's go ahead and do that. Why don't we just run the test and I'll talk about it while we're doing this. This is much easier to understand that way. So we're going to go ahead and select a collection. You could have multiple environments if you wanted to. We select an environment. We would define 2 test iterations and select the test data file. Okay, now from this data file, with query parameters, we'll read the test data value and replace the variables as per the values defined in the test data file. It could be easily millions, thousands of data, whatever you need it to be that. And we previewed the test data. And here we are. We're just verifying the data. Now we're going to go ahead and verify this test run report. Now we're running this test run here through Newman. This is a CLI tool. We're showing you both similar to GUI. Here are the test results coming in through CLI. We can specify environment details in command as well. So to run the collection and generate consolidated report. So here you are. And there you go. So now we can show you can run it through either through GUI, or you could integrate it right into your CLI as well. So great. And so after you run your test suite, next step is going to be able to see your test results, where we can analyze the pass, failed, and skip test results. And let's go ahead and take a look at those results. So before we do that, why don't we, what we thought might be good is we might as well show you how API tests can be as part of your CI environment and your build process. Okay, very fairly simple to do. We're going to show you a demo of Jenkins. It could be any CI, Jenkins, Maven, whatever you like to use. We're running these test suites, build and view Newman report with all the test run results. And what we're going to do here is, hold on, before you run this. Yeah, let's go ahead and choose that so we can talk about the number of iteration pass. Yeah, let's see. Let's run this one. So here we're going to run through this Jenkins. Click on build now, and here will be you view the results, and here you are. It's not API tests do run very, very fast. Now you can go ahead and analyze the test results, and that's it. Boy, that's a lot of work we accomplished in 40 minutes here. Thank you. So, we ran an API test manually through Swagger. We set up a Postman. We imported an API collection. We parameterized variables in environment. We wrote quick API tests. We ran API tests through GUI and through, command line using Newman. We ran the test with Jenkins in our test environment, in our CI environment, and analyzed results and reports. And if you wanted to, you could easily send those reports to any stakeholder if you wanted to. It's again part of that. So, in our mind, API testing is really an engineering discipline where we need to focus on all areas, including functional, security, and performance testing. Some of this we will cover, like security and performance. We see a lot of interest. How do you do that for API testing? We'll do that in future webinars. So if you do like to hear more about it, please do send us a note. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you like to see more of? So last but not least, let's talk a little bit about best practices of API testing. So these are some of the snippets. This is we did an earlier webinar. We encourage you to go take a look at that one. I think that would be good. So these best practices, we've taken from our REST test framework. You can use these standards within other tools, Ready API, SOAP UI, Postman, and you can integrate them with your CI/CD framework if you like. So what are some of the best practices? First one is your initial environment setup, preconditions. Ensure all setup environments and variables are declared and set prior to execution of tests. This will ensure that we run our tests in a controlled environment with all the preconditions set up and minimize false positives. Okay. So next, we're going to go look at is no hard-coded values. You saw that we demonstrated that how we remove those hard-coded values in our demo to ensure our tests run dynamically every time and it's not dependent on any specific data set. Very important. Next one is you want to parameterize your test data. You want to be able to build a capability of running tests on multiple data sets. Could be tens or millions of users, whatever you like, and multiple data sets. You should be able to do that. So you can accomplish it using parameterization. Then you want to do coverage all sets of positive and negative scenarios. This is a must when you're testing API to ensure that positive and negative inputs are handled well within API and always results in a known expected response condition, not in a known state. Okay, so you want to handle it at API level rather than bubble it up to a UI. Then you want to use again, these are best practices as we follow. Prioritizing group tests. You want to be able to manage your execution. So if there's any code change, any bug fix, you're only testing the affected areas. We recommend that. Again, proper validation of API responses, where you want to make sure that the data that you only validate response codes. Then let's handle exceptions. You want to be able to handle exceptions where exceptions are being caught and handled within our test framework. So eliminate any unforeseen exceptions. Very important, right? Which could result in, don't want to have, terminate over your test execution and unnecessary effort to rerun tests from the beginning, okay? And then last but not least is we highly recommend that you comment code extensively. This commenting, which, it does play an important role in the framework to understand what is implemented and how. And anybody who picks up your code can really understand it. So those are some of the best practices that we recommend. Again, let me reiterate, your preconditions, your hard-coded values, parameterizing your test data, coverage, for positive and negative tests, prioritize and group your tests, and proper validation of API response, handle exceptions, code commenting. Okay. Take a break. Oh boy. Friends, I do hope that we have demonstrated to you that API testing is future of QA. It really is future of QA. At QA Source, we do believe, future of QA is bright, very bright. Again, let's take a look at this slide here. I want to bring this slide back. All of the nodes that you're seeing extending from API are opportunities as far as we're concerned for our profession. We've looked at API universe. We showed it to you. Millions of developers building APIs need to get tested. We have demonstrated how APIs help you build software faster, better, cheaper. API testing enables you to do more or meet today's business needs. Okay. It is my sincere hope that we have given you an overview of why API testing is important. why API testing is future of QA, how you can perform API testing. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to present. Please do send us your feedback again, so we can make these webinars better. I wish you the best in your API testing endeavors. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Rajiv. Everyone hang on for a minute. We're going to get to the Q&A in just a moment. But first, every time I see this, I'm amazed at how much software is changing and will continue to change, which of course changes how we test. At the same time, the principles of automation, having robust tests and ensuring your test strategy is effective, that does not change. And we've made an effort today to share those types of principles with you. You may be interested, Rajiv mentioned it earlier, in watching some other on-demand webinars we held earlier this year. Accelerate your automation with API testing. We've also held multiple webinars on how to build maintainable automation and how to effectively measure your automation. Please feel free to check them out at the URL at the bottom of your screen, qasource.com/webinars. We will also have a video of this presentation up at the same URL next week. So once again, thank you, Rajiv, for your insight on how our industry is changing and how important it is to incorporate more API testing into our test suite, and giving us the overview of how to do API testing. Now we have a few minutes left for Q&A. If you haven't yet submitted your questions, please use the webinar control panel to submit them. Looks like we have a number of questions in the queue. If we don't get to yours today, we will answer them in a blog post to be published next week. So it looks like our first question is, as a quality engineer, how do I implement a single automated test for an API or search endpoint that A, simulates queries, and B, validates required and optional fields? Can I just do this in Postman, or do I have to use an IDE to accomplish this?
Good. Let me understand this question. They want to do a automated test, API search points, simulate queries, validate required and optional fields. Good question. Yes, you can use Postman to automate some of these scenarios. You can use similar queries, validate optional, require fields. You can achieve this through parameterized data-driven tests. You can, parameterization will really help you dynamically accept input parameters, and data-driven approach, will help you test that. Absolutely, you could do that. I think we sort of demonstrated that in the in our demo. That's how you can use data files. And if not, you can refer back to these demos, and you'll be able to see that. Yeah, that definitely can be done. Problem. I think this question probably came in before we gave the demo. So
that probably did. Okay, we have another question. I was wondering how we can post XML data in Postman.
Oh, XML data. Well, XML is kind of dying. Again, I'm going to get in trouble with saying that. You can. This is a common thing that people struggle with when they're starting to use Postman. There's XML, there's JSON. My first question would be, why do you want to use XML? Again, don't take me wrong. XML definitely has its advantages. If I were to choose between the two, I would recommend JSON. That'd be my first reaction whenever somebody asks me that, hey, XML, JSON. Now, if you were so inclined that you wanted to use, you had to. There are XML definitely has its pluses. XML is very flexible. Some developers really love using XML, and that's okay. If you need to do that, there is a way. You can go into, you can create a request. And if you need to do a post, you need to do that. Just change the type of post. And in the body type, you can choose raw data type, and then you can just choose text XML, and then you will be able to pass XML data. You can do that. But again, I would point out to you, you may want to really think about it. Is XML really your best choice? XML is much more verbose. It is slower. It uses more memory. So in our humble opinion, we highly would recommend that you may want to start thinking about JSON. But if you wanted to use XML, you could definitely use XML. So that definitely can be done. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you. We have some more here. Here's one. Can you give me more insight, like what exactly we need to check while performing API testing in our product?
That's a loaded question. Boy, well, APIs are, everywhere. I mean, APIs now you really need to be looking at, what I talk about is when you're testing APIs, you got to do functionality testing, you got to test your security, you got to make sure your performance load testing. I mean, you got to do all of those. APIs are carrying, we're interacting with third parties, so you got to test the third party services. Oh boy, what else? That's a lot of stuff. I mean, I can go on for a while. How much time do we have? I mean, you want to check, your data schema. You want to check your, if you're really testing your APIs or your HTTP status codes, you can check those. How your data is being, how you're retrieving your data. Yeah, I mean, performance times, response times, security aspects. Like I said in the earlier, your authorization, authentication, encryption. I mean, those are all important, and how you're handling errors. I mean, you got to do all of that stuff. I mean, that's practically everything that we talked about in this webinar. Rewatch the webinar to see what you need to be doing testing on the APIs. Sorry, I can't be any more help than that.
Nope, that's good. I think we have time for another super quick one. I'm an engineering director and we're doing API testing in our product, but I think we could be doing a better job performing API load testing. What tool do you think is best for that?
Yeah, load testing. Okay. Load testing really needs to be part of every API testing that you do. That's very important. A lot of people don't do that. We go into companies. APIs work. APIs just like any software. When the developer builds it, they're building it really for themselves initially, and it works. And what happens? Load testing is so important that you could lose a lot of business. If your API cannot handle the required load, then it's very certain that UI is not going to be able to do it. What tool do you use? Really, we're a tool agnostic company. So please choose what is best for your environment. There are a lot of tools available, but not all of them are best suited for API load testing. Some of them are limited to HTTP protocol. So the basic guideline I can tell you the tools that you want to use is pick a tool that is updated frequently for enhancements and bug fixes. The test language, you want to make sure the tool uses a language that is used by your developer, your company, and your environment. Make sure you have in-house skills available. If not, you're going to have to find those skills, hire those skills. And tool is flexible to provide parameterization. Of course, you want to be able to assert it, and it has distributed testing capabilities. What else? Oh, and it integrates with your build and CI system. You want to make sure it does that. And you really don't want to focus on recording capabilities. You want to be able to write your own tests. So some of the tests, okay, I'm running out of time. Some of the tools that we use are, again, they are not in any particular order. We use JMeter, BlazeMeter, Grinder. So we use all of them. JMeter is probably the most flexible and popular. So if you need to hire people, you'll probably be able to find those skills easily. It can run practical on any operating system with Java. What else? You could use, BlazeMeter is really nothing but JMeter like on steroids, and Grinder is an open source tool. Of course, then they're commercial. Your Load, UI Pro, Load Runner, Sil Performer, they're all from Micro Focus. You could use those. Okay.
Okay.
So, great.
Well, I think that's all the time we have. We want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to end the Q&A. Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you.
But these are some great questions. Thank you to all who submitted these and to everyone else whose we didn't get to. If you have any other questions about API testing or anything else, please feel free to contact us. And again, take a look at our blog next week. We'll be answering the questions we didn't get to today. Once again, thank you, Rajiv, for your presentation, and thank you to everyone who attended today. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And until then, happy testing.
Happy testing. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.